Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of the CHASEPAL podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Twister with Andrew and our buddy Danny, and our buddy Matt joins a little bit later on in the episode, so there's a little bit of a cut in later in, but hope you guys enjoy it, and leave a comment down below if you want us to talk about something else next week.
All right, what's up, guys? It's been a while. We've had some things happen. Twisters came out. We have much to talk about. I've got
great movie.
Great movie. One of the best movies of the year, if you ask me. Right behind my own movie.
All time, if you ask me.
Yeah, we've got Andrew back here. I'm Charlie, and we got our friend Danny here as well.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Certified storm chaser extraordinaire. We're just going to talk about
navigator
storms.
Extraordinaire.
Certified navigator.
Yes. you need me to take you somewhere? I got you.
That's good because I can't. So.
Yeah, Andrew's gonna miss a turn. 1 out of every 5 turns.
Yeah.
That happens to the best of us. Honestly, I think Andrew is a really good forecaster. Danny, you're a good navigator, and I just exist.
I'm not even a good forecaster, to be honest. Matt is a good forecaster.
Oh, Matt's a great forecaster.
Matt's really good.
I think you have the best instincts during the chase.
I do. Yeah.
I'll agree with that.
I would agree with that. I have nothing else. Like, if it were just me and Danny, we would pick a spot where there's absolutely no storms, but we'd get there efficiently.
You get to see cows at all points of the day.
Exactly.
That's true. Over, under, how many individual cows do you see during a storm chasing season?
Fuck. A lot.
Gosh.
At least one.
At least. I'll go
3,800.
I was gonna say something in the
I would say
thousands.
over.
I think overs as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, are we
Well,
distinguishing that you can't see the same cow twice and count it twice? Because if you go to the same area for 2 different setups and you see the same group of cows, like, does that count?
I don't think that counts. I think individual, which
Okay.
I still think is probably 5 to 10,000.
I would
At
say
least.
that's fair.
I would say maybe even over 10.
Over under number of cows in the movie Twister.
The
Wait,
original?
that's a good one. I don't.
Twisters, the new one.
Oh, I don't know. I remember
Actually,
at least
were
a
there
few.
any cows?
Well, none of
Yeah,
them
there
were
was
flying.
the flying one. Yeah.
Wait, was there a flying one? Did I blink
Yeah,
during
there
the
was,
flying
there
cow?
was. Yeah. There was the
It's
one.
a great review so far, guys.
Okay, there was one. It was whenever the British dude was in the back. By the way, I don't know anyone's name, so this is gonna be. I'm gonna rely on you guys for that.
It's okay.
Ben, the guy that like threw up.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure a cow went in front of his windshield and then he threw up. But maybe that could be a what's that? Where you falsely remember something. I don't know.
False memories, yeah.
Oh, the Mandela effect.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's start out. I want to hear. Well, so we haven't talked about this yet at all. If anyone's listening, and I know a little bit because Charlie didn't have as immediately strong of a positive reaction as Danny and I had, and frankly, every other person that I've talked to. So, Charlie, why don't you start? What was your overall take of the movie?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm super curious here.
So I've had more time to think about it now, and I came to this conclusion after about 6 or 7 hours after I watched the movie. At first, I really didn't love it, but now it's like, okay, the more I sit back and I actually think about the way it was a really good overall movie. I thought the story was good, the motivation was good, all of the characters that were meant to be likable were. Like, everything about it from a movie perspective was really good. So Andrew, I know I told you that I didn't love the movie. I take that back. I'm not going to say it was like my favorite movie or anything, but it was good. I would watch it a second time.
Okay. All right. What about you, Danny?
So Charlie, so upon a more analytical lens, you liked it, but what initially told you, oh, I don't like this movie that much?
It's because of the way that we are ingrained in storm chasing, and we actually know like the science and the nitty gritty behind it. There are just it felt like there were too many parts that were made for just to drive the story and didn't have any like legitimate reason behind it from a storm chasing perspective. Like I'll say one right now. The whole business dude working with Storm Par to like get properties on the cheap, he didn't have to work with them. Like he could have just driven into where a tornado went through the day before and handed out their business card, and that's an unnecessary expense on his part. So like that didn't make much sense to me. But you know, if I'm not nitpicking it, it's like the movie as a whole was good. I did end up liking it more than I thought I would immediately after I watched it. So,
well, you know, and I'll go one step on that, because just to talk about the Storm Par thing, I mean, look, I don't think that's too unrealistic either, is the thing. I mean, I guess could you define a little bit of what you mean by that you don't think that part was realistic?
Why would a businessman who is interested in property spend money to partner with a storm research organization for the purpose of him going to towns after they've been hit and buying property? Like, I don't see how that would be a worthy investment where he would make that back, and I don't see how that's a partnership that would advance him as like a businessman. This has nothing to do with the science. This is just like one point where I was like, it doesn't make sense for this to be the driving force behind why Kate now partners with what's his nuts, the other guy, Tyler.
No, actually, I agree with that, and it's an interesting point, because I had looked at it from the point of why had this is so bad. What's his name? What was the guy that runs that company?
Javi.
Yeah, Javi. You know, I was thinking you were saying, why did Javi partner with the businessman? But no, you're right. That businessman easily could have looked, and yeah, I think the thing is that he wanted to be the first person on the scene, so that no other businessman, you know, could come in and take the land. That being said, it doesn't explain anything about the radars that they were using trying to get the scans of the tornadoes. That has absolutely no
that was
effect.
Weird too.
But I think, you know, they could have done something with insurance scams, or the people that like looted after the fact. You know, there's anytime a tornado goes through, and this doesn't hit the news very often, if at all. I don't see this, but every time that you have a tornado go through a town, that night you have people drive into that town from neighboring areas looking to rob the people whose homes have been destroyed and take things out. And then you have insurance scammers coming through trying to sell you scam insurance. And it's interesting because those are issues they easily could have used and plugged in for the exact same plot effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else too, you mentioned the radars. It's like you have to triangulate, you know, around the tornado to get it. It's like, all right, that checks out. I understand that. Why did they have to be directly in front of it? Why couldn't they have put like the two on each corner, northeast and southwest of the tornado, and then one directly behind it, instead of like flipping it?
Not to mention that that's not even how phased array radars work.
No.
I mean, I think you could take one from about 3 miles away and get a perfect scan of the tornado. Not to mention that when you set it down and the whole front of the thing was lighting up, I mean, that's like beep boop boop. All right, yep, here we are. We need a Hollywood radar go.
Yeah,
but
that, and it's like, you know, it weighs 50 pounds. Yeah, it's
Plus,
like,
you know how much one of those phased array radars costs?
Several $1 million.
Yeah. I think it's, well, okay, I don't know about ones that small, and frankly, I don't even know if ones that small exist already, but I know that OU has a phased array radar on campus. It's pretty close to $1 billion, if I remember correctly. I think it was around 700 or 800 million. So the idea that you would set one down inches from a tornado, watch 800 big ones just go straight into the sky, that part was cracking me up.
So here's something else too. Two things. Danny, we'll let you get your opinion on the movie in a second. I do just want to bring something up real quick.
Yeah, no, go for it.
When you're considering the price of that radar, is that for the full development of phased array as a concept as well, or is that just for the radar? Because that changes a lot.
I think that's just for the single radar. Now, again, I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that that was the number that I heard about 4 years ago, 3, 4 years ago. Maybe that's come down a little bit, but I know for a fact it hasn't come down to the level that it could be used in that manner of the movie.
No, not at all. No, I agree with that. So, anyway, yeah, there were just some weird inaccuracies and like stuff that didn't make any sense whatsoever. But like as a movie, thought it was good. So, moving on from
Okay,
that.
so actually, before we move on to Danny, I want to hear. So, first,
Come on, guys.
Charlie, I want you to give it an overall grade. Grade it like A, B, C, D, A plus, whatever.
Sure.
On first, what like your enjoyment level of the movie, and then 2, how accurate it was from a storm chasing standpoint.
Okay. I'd give it an A minus for overall enjoyment. I thought it was a good time. I'd spend 2 hours doing that again. From a science perspective, I'd give it a D plus. So, just like the grade I got in a couple of meteorology classes, that doesn't pass. So, if that's logic
really
that I would
trust
have
this guy's
used,
opinion, guys.
yeah, yeah, trust the experts, right? But yeah, I mean, there were just some inaccuracies there, so I'd say A or A minus for enjoyment, and like a D or a D plus for accuracy.
All right, Danny, let's hear your review and then grades as well.
Well, yeah. So normally I approach these kinds of things when I think about a movie or whatever, from a kind of headspace analytical perspective. I just straight up enjoyed this movie. I had such a good time in the theater. I went with, a number of friends, my family, because they all know my love for tornadoes and stuff. And it was just fun. I mean, the graphics were great. They weren't over the top and cheesy. Like they were good. It made you feel that rush and excitement of weather and tornadoes that we feel when we're out in the field. I think it captured that pretty well. Of course, hearing all the science buzzwords that I now understand, having a degree in meteorology, that kind of a little smile across my face. I just enjoyed myself. It was fun. It made me want to go back out and chase tornadoes, even though the season pretty much just ended.
I know that this sucks that it came out right when suddenly you have to wait a year to see more tornadoes.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, if I was rating it from how much I enjoyed it, I'd give it an A. The only thing that doesn't push it to A plus for me is seeing a little bit too much of Glenn Powell, but I understand why Hollywood would make that decision.
You know what? There
okay with that.
There was no actual romance in the film, and I'll give them credit for that. It's like they could have forced that at any point, and they didn't. And I was like, okay, I respect that.
I respect that too. Yeah, it's like that wasn't an emphasis of the movie. It was about the weather and science and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I really love that part because I felt like they could have easily forced it, and it was there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was definitely there. Like there was the tension. There was the okay. Is she going for him? Is she going for him? And then they didn't force it, and it's like it's such a relief to finally see a movie that doesn't have that, because I feel like in recent movies they've kind of thrown those plot lines in and it becomes cheesy. I mean, no matter how expected or unexpected it is cheesy to have the climax be the two main characters finally get together and finally kiss, whatever, and it's like, this is a movie about tornadoes, it's a movie about disaster. Like, I like that they had that as a plot line, but it was very subtle.
Definitely. I was totally expecting it there at the end, when they were in the field, like lying on the ground. I was like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
And then it just cut. And I was like, oh, that's kind of nice.
Right. Or like in the airport when he went in after, and it was like, oh, okay, here it is. And it didn't happen. It was like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
That's pretty
exactly.
cool.
And then, rating it from a science perspective, I mean, all the words that they use when describing the storms. This is coming from a place of watching the original movie, Twister, 1996. I've watched it like 30 or 40 times, obsessed with that movie growing up, and they got some things incorrect, and it was a little frustrating. So coming from that and watching this, I would have to give it a B plus, maybe an A minus. Like, they did really well with the science.
Wow, really?
And explaining stuff. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the jargon's going to go over people's heads, understandably, but everything they were saying, I was like, yep, that's pretty good. That's how I would describe chases. That's how I would describe tornadic scenes, and I think it went pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna have a very similar review to you, Charlie, or Danny, because I loved this movie. Frankly, I mean, I went in Virginia, and I thought it was pretty cool because the theater was totally packed, and it wasn't the opening day. I mean, it was a few days after it had come out, and the theater was absolutely packed. And Virginia is not a storm chasing community, so it felt pretty cool going in there, knowing that like, yeah, none of these people have been around tornadoes, and yet this is still a movie that they're interested in coming and seeing. So with that in mind, I thought that for the non-storm chaser, I really enjoyed the movie. I mean, it was well written, good plot lines. There was no political message in it, which I mean, I hate
That's a
that.
relief.
Even if, and even if I agree with the message, it's like people aren't coming to the movies to try to have a message put on them, or so. And I think it's really easy when you have science movies to do that as well. So I really appreciated that. And then from a chasing aspect, I agree with Danny. I felt like it really captured what it feels like to be right next to a tornado and be in the midst of it, and especially the gas station scene.
That was accurate.
That was one of the most accurate things I have ever seen. And the convergence, the way people drive. I don't remember, Charlie, if you were with us. I don't think you were, Danny, but I was chasing down for the Lockett tornado storm.
I was not. Either one of those I was there.
Yeah, I was there. I know Josh and Lauren were there, but people were literally driving on the left side of the road, and then when a car would get in front of them, they would drive on the opposite side of the road so they could get like a clear shot of the tornado, and they would cut people off. I mean, driving around storms is like driving with a bunch of drunk New Yorkers in Dallas. Like, that's how it is.
That's a pretty good way to describe it.
It's pretty good.
So, I thought that was a really accurate part. So as far as an overall grade, I would give it an A for enjoyment. I agree. I think there were a couple of holes in the plot line, especially with the businessmen, and frankly, they could have expanded that out a little bit. I mean, they just kind of put that there and said, okay, here's a surface level reason for why Javi's chasing, and they didn't dive into it at all. And I think they could have really developed Javi as a character a little bit more. I mean, really, he's one of the three main characters, and they barely developed him, in my opinion. So there was that. But anyway, I'd still give it an A. For realism, I would give it a B+.
I don't agree with that.
So, okay. It could have been so easy for them not to consult a single meteorologist for this entire movie and just produce something that had really cool special effects, akin to whenever the tornado was going through with the oil field and it was just like blowing up and fire. Like, that doesn't happen, right? But it could. I mean, it wasn't inaccurate for the actual stuff that was happening. It just is unlikely. And in a similar vein, getting to see 3 photogenic supercells back to back to back, that is just so rare. But again, it's like, okay, it is possible. And the same thing with the twins, right? Like, you had a scenario where there were 2 photogenic twins. Okay, when has that ever happened? Twice? Nebraska, Pilger once, and then, I don't know, Illinois that other time a couple years ago. But it's possible. It's not scientifically inaccurate. And then, you go a little bit forward to the El Reno tornado. One of my biggest things that I felt like was really inaccurate, that I didn't like, that they could have done better, was the time that it took tornadoes to move. These guys were acting like you could pull out a lawn chair and sit next to a tornado for a good 10 minutes.
Yep.
If you were intercepting a tornado, it's boom, gone, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. That El Reno, the town would have been gone. I mean, it's like, that was one of the things that I felt like took it down from an A- to a B.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, while all of these things are unlikely to occur, it is not scientifically inaccurate.
And something else to consider too, especially with that last tornado, I might be nitpicking, this might just be me. When Kate drives into that, if you're close enough to the tornado that the walls are getting ripped off the movie theater and people are getting sucked out, but
she's
you,
Yeah.
but you're
Yeah.
still just
gone.
able to drive right in, and that 40-foot aluminum trailer is like getting lifted in the air, but she's just still sitting there, and none of the windows are breaking or anything. It's like, dude, you're cracked.
Yeah.
That's not.
That's some Hollywood right there.
She would have been dead like
Yeah.
6 minutes ago.
Well, and this showed up in the first Twisters movie too, where the truck was it was like selective physics for the truck. Like
Yeah.
sometimes the tornado affects it, sometimes it doesn't. And what I didn't like about that was, you know, the Dominator, for example, Reed Timmer, what he drives. Yeah, it's got stuff that can stick down into the ground. But the point of it is that it resists any wind from getting up under the car. It doesn't matter if you stick stakes into the ground with a red truck. You're still getting lifted up if
Yeah.
you've got wind flowing under the car. Yeah.
So yeah, a couple of inaccuracies, but I mean, it was an enjoyable movie, and I think the idea that you can force a thunderstorm to collapse, like, at least it was rooted in actual science, and they were considering it in the right way. Like, oh, you have to like precipitate the moisture and then force it to cool down. It's like, that makes sense, but it's still not possible in any degree, especially the way that they did it.
I'm here to
was
disagree.
I was actually wondering about that. My friends were asking me, is that possible? And I'm like, in theory,
Yeah.
And that's what I
yes.
mean, in theory, yeah.
I do not know if that is realistic or not, though.
Right. So I was thinking a lot about this because I also got the same questions. I think this is probably the biggest question that non-meteorologists have. Can you actually stop a tornado by cloud seeding? I would say the answer is yes. And the thing is, what's hard is actually being in the exact right place where whatever particles that absorb moisture and everything get sent into the exact right spot in the storm. That is what's impossible, because if you've ever been around a storm, they evolve so quickly. And this is the part of the movie that I was talking about earlier, where the time of movement is completely wrong. And it would be pure luck if we actually, as humans, were ever able to stop a tornado, because first of all, we don't even know exactly how tornadoes form. I mean, we have models that show roughly what they do, and we know roughly the general regions of air that you need, but when it comes down to it, there's no map of a supercell when you're chasing it. And even if you did have it, to put yourself in the exact spot and to get the storm to pick up whatever possible particles, I mean, close to 0%.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And you can keep going on about how the movie didn't totally reflect how quickly storms evolve. It's very true. It's a very good point. And also, I don't know what that material that they use, how expensive it is, but I feel like you would need a lot of it.
Oh yeah.
I agree. I also think you need a lot of it. But at the same time, I was thinking about that too, and it's like, well, if we know exactly the most important place for a tornado to get in its inflow, you might not need that much, because you don't have to stop the river of moisture. You just have to divert it a little bit. Because I mean, if you think tornadoes are so delicate with how, I mean, one little change in the terrain can completely derail a tornado. So yeah, you might not need that much, realistically.
The new tornado stop machine is just put a mountain in front of the path of the tornado. I think that's more realistic.
Yeah.
The Great Wall of the Great Plains.
Yeah. Just put it right next to I-44. All of a sudden, more becomes 0%. That's a good point,
Maybe
though. What are...
maybe that's what the skyscraper in OKC is going to be.
Oh,
That's what they're
God.
trying to do.
Dude, they're just going to put, like, some kind of
Twilight.
supersonic... Put some supersonic machine on top to, like, send a pulse wave out. So, yeah. Alright, so we've got our basic opinions out here. We've got, a little bit of the critiques of some of the more scientifically inaccurate parts. What do we think they got right from the, like, specifically storm chasing perspective? Like, what felt real about that? And I have an answer outside of the chaser convergence, because we did mention that already. What felt real to you guys?
Well, definitely right off the bat with that gas station scene. You have the Well, I can't. Whoever Glenn Powell played Tyler, that's his name, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Being at least on the outside, you know, chasing the stuff for the views, for the thrill. I mean, there's one guy that kind of comes to mind in the real world. His name starts with an R.
They actually modeled him after Reed.
Yep.
Really?
Which tracks.
Yeah, definitely tracks. But then, you know what I love? I'll just go on this real quick. I love how we get to know more about Tyler, and it's not all about, looks and views and stuff like that. And he's actually like trying to help out people after a tornado with the funds that he gets.
Yeah.
But that jumped out to me right there at the beginning of the gas station. The two different kind of perspectives, if you will, on storm chasing. Like, oh, the science, that's what really matters, and then, oh, there's just chasers that are out there for the views and whatnot. It may seem that way, but it's also not always that black and white.
To go off of the gas station scene with like the two different types of chasers, they got this really accurately because you have some chasers that never went to school and they don't have meteorology degrees, they never studied it, and yet they are some of the best chasers in the game because they have so much experience and they know chasing, which is totally different than knowing a textbook. And I really like how they showed how both can be successful, and you don't need a degree to go chase, nor do you necessarily, you're still going to be well off if you do have a degree and you do understand the storm in Kate's perspective. So I thought that was good. And another thing that I really want to emphasize as being really accurate and that I loved was the safety aspect of how to be safe during tornadoes. They covered all the bases. And, this is such a huge myth that people get under the overpass. And I love that they started out the movie by showing an overpass and then showing that it's
what happens.
And I also love that they did a little, I guess it's a tribute or maybe a nod to the OU3 students right at the beginning. I mean, I think that wasn't an accident, that it was 3 students chasing that died. And so, that they didn't have to do that. And I think it shows that how in touch with the chasing community that the director was with everything. And so they had that scene with under the overpass. Then they also the scene after the rodeo when they were getting into the pool.
Yes.
That is absolutely the best place. You want to get underground. You don't want to be in your vehicle. And it was brutal, when that guy got in the truck and then the truck just got picked up.
Oh my goodness, dude.
It was brutal. My jaw was dropped when I saw that. But
what I immediately thought of with that scene? I don't know if you remember the rolling Ford, Mississippi tornado, but there was that photograph.
Yes.
Of those headlights that were like up in the air.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the most haunting photographs ever.
Yeah.
Not to mention the truck they used, and this is really specific. The truck they used was Joe's truck from the first movie. It was that Jeep with the original Dorothy in it. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was a cool callback that probably like 2 other people noticed, but I was like, hey, that looks familiar.
By the way, for anybody listening, context on what Andrew was saying earlier, do not go under an overpass if there's a tornado nearby, because the overpass actually acts to funnel the winds and thus increase the flow and make the wind speeds even faster.
Yep.
Than
You're
outside
better
the
off
overpass.
getting out of your car and staying as close to the ground as possible.
Yep.
Get in a ditch if you can.
Yep. So,
straight up just lay down.
I thought that all the safety was that was probably one of the reasons why I like this movie a lot, because again, Hollywood had an opportunity here to show, how many people do you think are going to watch this movie? 30 million people, something like that, 20 million people. I mean, the wrong thing to do, and instead they showed them exactly what to do. So I mean, frankly, I think that it could save, maybe not a ton, but it could save a couple dozen lives over the course of the next 10 to 20 years of people that say, hey, the tornado's coming and hitting their house, and they're like, oh, I remember not to get in my car or whatever, but
or even just people just sharing it with their friends, like, well, when I saw this movie, like, the students died when they went under the overpass, but they were fine when they went underground.
Right.
Yeah, and as much as I would tell people never take safety advice from a movie, people do it anyway, so at least here we are.
Yeah, at least they did it fairly accurately, and even chasing in the vehicles, they made it very clear, like, yeah, you're not you cannot get that close. The scene where Kate and Javi have to back up away from the tornado, I thought was maybe a little bit towards the unrealistic side of that. But, pretty much everything else, the way that they tried to stay far away from it, that was pretty accurate. Because in the original Twisters, they would just, drive straight up to it and they'd be next to it. And it's like, yeah, that's not really how that works for anybody else, other than like maybe one specific person. But so overall, yeah.
Yep. Oh, another realistic point was shooting rockets into the tornado. Now, they're not going to shoot fireworks, but Reed Timmer, a couple of years ago, did shoot rocket probes into the tornado and collected data doing that exact thing. So again, it seems ridiculous, but it happened.
Yep. I think also Pecos Hank and his team like shot up sparklers or sparkles or something up in the tornado. He made a video about a sparkle tornado. It was pretty
Dude,
great.
they should have had Pecos Hank in this movie. That would have been
that would have been such a good cameo.
Go check out his YouTube channel.
Everybody that watches this will probably know who Pecos Hank is.
Go check out my YouTube channel, Danny Tornado Hunter.
Yeah, Andrew's almost at 1,000 subs, right?
Actually, not almost. I am over 1,000.
Hey!
He hit it.
Great success.
Yeah, just in time for me to leave and never post content again.
Hey, they can come check out CHASEPAL anytime they want, though, right?
That's right.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, no, actually, my plan is to come back to Oklahoma every May and still chase. And then I'm also going to rip off Matt's footage and post it on my page to keep it going. So.
Nice.
Yeah, we know Matt wouldn't do that himself.
With his consent. But yeah.
Yep. We couldn't even get him for this podcast.
2 hours later.
All right, Charlie, I heard you did not like Twisters, and I need a seriously good explanation for why.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so I okay. I'll go back to what I said earlier.
Here he goes.
Yeah. I'll go back to what I said in the beginning. I sat with it for a few hours afterwards, and even though I didn't like it as soon as I came out of the theater, I can go back and confidently say it was a good movie after thinking about it for a while. I thought the story was good. All the characters that were supposed to be likable were likable, and basically the science behind it was more accurate than the first one, but I thought some of the important plot points were not as realistic or did not have a good a driver as they should have. And I thought it was a good movie to watch, but there were some plot holes that didn't make sense to me, is essentially the conclusion that I've come to.
Before you go,
Well,
Matt,
first of all,
Matt, I just want you to think about these. You're going to have to do one grade for your overall enjoyment of the movie and then a second grade for how realistic it was. All right, so go ahead.
On a scale of like A plus to F.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, Charlie, I don't know how you did not walk out of that movie pumped up, wanting to chase.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
I did want to go
walked out
storm
there like-
chasing.
I walked out there. I wanted to go home and do work because I was like, I'm gonna go do work. I was pumped. It inspired me. So the fact that you had to sit on it for a few hours to realize it was a good movie is crazy.
Context viewers, Matt is an awesome research scientist who does research on tornadoes.
Yes.
But he
Matt
also
is
sometimes
Yeah.
but he sometimes gets burnt out from research, as we all do at some point. So the fact that this made him just want to go home and work, that's sure saying a lot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But what were the plot holes that you thought there were?
So there were a couple of them. Number one, we talked about how the main driver behind like the investment in Stormpar was the guy wanting to buy the destroyed properties of people who were affected by the tornado, and he wanted, Javi's, or he invested in Stormpar and with Javi to get access to these people, but realistically he could just drive into any town after it was hit by a tornado and do the same thing, so it didn't make sense that he would want to be part of that. And additionally, we talked about the phased array radars. Like, that didn't make sense, the concept behind that, and needing to triangulate it. And also the way that they triangulated it, you could have just put one directly behind the tornado and then one at each front corner instead of putting one right in front of it for dramatic effect. And then the very last scene, if the tornado was actively destroying the town of El Reno and sucking people out of buildings, I think
For
Kate
about
driving
20 minutes, I'll add.
yeah, for about 20 minutes. I think Kate would probably have taken flight about 30 minutes before she actually put the truck in the ground and then proceeded to roll away. So that's where I'm
Okay.
at.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
I'll
guess
do that.
that's fair. I guess that's fair.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it was a bad movie. It was a good movie. I was excited to see it, and I would see it again, but there were some significant holes behind the driver of the movie.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think some of those potholes are just like kind of necessary, I guess,
To make
because
a movie.
yeah, if you're making a movie that's going to be realistic to some extent, like appeal to multiple audiences, there's gonna be some areas that aren't like perfectly tied together, especially in a like shortened amount of time. So the plot holes they did leave, like I didn't even think about any of those things at first.
Same.
So like they weren't glaring to detract from the movie.
The one thing that I do really agree with Charlie on is the whole businessman.
Yeah,
with,
that's the biggest
that
one.
company.
That's a really good point.
Because he brought up a really good point where it's like, why would he even need that company to come in and do the exact same business that he was doing? Why does it make
Yeah.
sense for him to invest in radars that are extremely expensive? And also what I was thinking was you could have easily filled the exact same hole with those insurance scammers or people that loot after tornadoes go through. I mean, you could have had like an evil gang member that would organize crime in these towns that were demolished or something like that, with the exact same effect. With that's who was investing in the storm chasers to help them ride along, and then whenever the chasers go back to the hotel, they go out to the town and steal. I mean, you could have completed the same exact plot in more realistic ways.
Yeah, I guess so.
But the big question, Matt, what grades would you give?
For
I mean-
enjoyment and for accuracy.
Enjoyment, I just simply have to give it an A+. Like, I just thoroughly enjoyed that movie from start to finish.
Yeah.
That's just all there is to it. I mean, realisticness, I would give it a B-.
Okay.
B-.
I think is that what I gave it?
I think you said B plus.
I think you
as
did,
well as
yeah.
I.
B+, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, most of it, very realistic, very feasible. Just the whole, like, actually stopping a tornado thing, just simply not realistic.
Oh, now we've got a conversation.
Oh.
We started this conversation right before you joined. I am of the opinion that while it's not realistic, it is possible if we knew exactly where in the tornado was most sensitive to getting disrupted, and we got lucky enough to be at that exact same point in the inflow.
See, here's the thing. Well, first of all, theoretically, it would be possible.
Okay, all right.
But
End it here.
No. Continue.
theoretically,
Continue.
But realistically, no. Realistically, it's not, because, well, first of all, if you were to go with the same approach, you'd have to use like way more than they did in the movie.
I thought so.
That simple. Like, it just, yeah. Also, if you think about a chemical going in the atmosphere like that, it's going to diffuse rapidly, especially in a tornadic wind field. It's not going to just gracefully get sucked up into the inflow and go right up into the tornado where it needs to be. It's going to, the diffusion is going to occur rapidly, and it's going to get mixed. That's the kind of the point of a tornado from the perspective of nature, is to mix imbalances in the atmosphere, and it's going to They're gonna be mixed along with that. If that makes sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, here's something
So,
else to
like,
consider too, and I'm interested to see what you'd have to say, Matt, because you research this kind of stuff. Two things. Number one, would that not just cause a lot of cancer for a lot of people? And also, so say you do make the updraft of the storm spontaneously collapse using this chemical, would that not cause like a mass scale microburst that would probably cause just as much damage as an actual tornado plus flash flooding?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, the second the movie ended, Marshall and I looked at each other and were like, "That would have been the microburst of the century."
Yeah.
The EF5 microburst.
That's what I said.
Well, yeah, you had the way that they did the graphics too at the top of the anvil was
Yeah.
like the way that the center collapsed. Think about the hail that would have come out.
Yeah, that part made me giggle a little bit. I can't lie, but
You would have had bowling balls coming down on these people that already had no roofs. Dude, everyone in that movie theater would have been dead, and it would have not been from the tornado.
Yeah,
yeah.
they would have been washed away and smashed.
Well, yeah. I mean, how they explained it in the movie was to increase the cold pool, and that's exactly what happened. It would increase the cold pool, and therefore you get a stronger downdraft.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would cause just as much damage as the tornado itself, probably. To be quite honest. And then as far as like the cancer goes, I mean, I'm not qualified because I don't know like the chemistry behind what those chemicals would cause to humans, but I'm sure it couldn't be anything good.
Yeah, probably not.
Like if it's reacting with water and we are like, I don't know, what is it, like we're like 70% water or something. There's gonna be some major reactions if we get ingested, if that chemical gets ingested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would venture to say.
Yeah. There's another scene that I want to hear your guys' opinion on that I felt like was unrealistic and didn't have to be. This is one of the only times. There's a lot of times where it's like, okay, that's unrealistic, but for the sake of a good movie, that's. And it's the scene with the twins. So
I knew you'd say that.
you know, here we go. This is not an unrealistic situation. It's unlikely, but you know, we got the twins in Pilger or whatever. What I have a problem with is what caused her to choose one twin over the other. Are you kidding me? What do you mean it has to do with that inflow is going to cut off the other? No, whichever one is cyclonic or anti-cyclonic. You're never going to have twins that are both cyclonic, right? You're going to always go for the cyclonic rotating twin. And I thought that would have been really easy for the degree meteorologists to know that, and then the group of non-meteorologists to not know that, and then boom, you have one go one way, the other go the other way. And instead you have this like weird cold pool rushing one way and then 3 seconds later rushing the other way. Like, okay, now all of a sudden you want to have a fast moving storm. Like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. So that was frustrating to me.
Were they both? Was one cyclonic and anti-cyclonic? I couldn't remember that detail.
It wasn't obvious in the graphics because I looked for that in the moment, but maybe if
Okay.
you rewatch it could be obvious if you rewatch it. But
Because my friends asked me this, they're like, "Is that her decision legit?" And I thought I had remembered the one on the left, for some reason, was also cyclonic.
I thought they were both
Yeah.
cyclonic.
Yeah, and so with the wind shift that did happen, it then would make sense.
okay,
'cause
but if they're both
the left one was-
cyclonic, then you wouldn't have had twins that close and that strong anyway.
No,
I'm
and they
99% sure that the Pilger twins were both
I was going to
cyclonic.
say, I think
Yeah, they were.
They were both
They were.
individual
I
tornadoes.
don't think there's ever been an anti-cyclonic tornado that's been rated higher than EF3.
Well, I didn't think so. I thought that was the only time. That's actually what. Wait, I'm about to Google this.
yeah, no,
I'm
the
99% sure because I'm pretty sure it was two separate.
It was
randoms
like,
that were
two separate
Yeah, it
circulations.
was-
They
it
were
was
their
two
own thing.
located. It wasn't like the
Really?
same supercell.
yeah, and they when they did combine, when they did
I'm so
combine,
cooked in the comments.
this bro Your degree is worthless,
That's actually
Andrew.
insane.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
fair enough.
the dude called out like Fujiwara effect, and like for the first 30 seconds they rotate around each other, and then they just split off, and it's like, okay, whichever one stayed with the parent meso, like that's obviously the one that's going to survive, but they didn't
Yeah.
even specify that.
Yeah. Yeah. I also thought it was pretty. I mean, to that point, you would have just looked at radar and determined, yeah, okay, which one is actually with the more developed updraft. And that's pretty much what it would have been. It would have had nothing to do with like the wind shift, I wouldn't think. But again, here I thought that the other EF4 in Pilger was anticyclonic, so maybe I don't
Well,
know
I
anything
mean,
about that.
The decision based off the wind shift, I think, does make sense. I don't know why the wind shifted necessarily, and I'm not an expert on tornadoes, but if the wind shifted such that the left would then take in all the inflow and thus continue sustaining itself much better than the right. So, based off
Yes.
the wind shift, the decision made sense. I don't know why that wind shift occurred though.
Well,
when you think about it, tornadoes are centers of extremely low pressure, right? And they were talking about the Fujiwara effect was happening at that one point. So if one tornado, even if it was associated with the main meso, was to get essentially cut off by the other twin, the inflow would go towards that low, and it would be pulling away from the original one.
Yeah. makes
Okay,
sense.
yeah.
Maybe I am a tornado expert.
It's like if you just plopped another tornado just right to the southeast of a other tornado, like
Mm,
it would it would no longer, the original one with the meso would no longer have like the sole influence of the mass response in the low levels. They'd be competing in the one in the front right, even though it's not necessarily like perfectly located with the meso. It would have the more direct influence on the warm, moist air to the south.
Yeah. So, what are we gonna give that scene, the Twister scene, or the twin scene, a grade for realism?
In terms of like pass fail A through F,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll say like a C plus.
I'd give it a solid B.
Yeah, I gotta give it a C plus.
I would give it a B plus, to be honest, because aside from the fact that it's very rare that you would be in the situation where you're choosing between two twins, I think it was a pretty realistic representation on if that
Yeah.
did happen to occur.
Dude,
I would
imagine
prefer
being
it.
in that situation, being able to choose between two twin tornadoes.
And actually, for that matter, out of all of us here, Matt's the only one who's seen twins.
That is true. I saw them from very far away and thought one was a smokestack, but
Wait, where was this?
it was just west of Chicago last summer.
Oh.
Dang.
Oh, you know what? I remember this text message
Dude,
now.
I need to move to Iowa or Illinois. That's where all the good stuff happens, I swear.
Yeah, Iowa magic is real. I don't know if you guys think that, but every year there's something happening in Iowa, and we're all like, "Oh, it's Iowa. It's not gonna happen," and it does.
There's a moderate there every other week in the spring. It's crazy.
Yep. We finally went up there, and we finally saw 2 tornadoes.
We were rewarded, yep.
Yep. Can you imagine if we didn't see tornadoes on that chase? We drove all the way to Iowa from
my
Norman.
God.
That would have been horrible.
Would have been
That
the
would've
worst
been
drive
horrible.
back.
Yeah. Oh, we wouldn't have made it that night for sure.
Now, what should have happened is Danny and I should have gone up there on April 26th.
Oh my god. No, it blocks that out of my memory, dude. Oh my, that was the worst decision we've ever made.
All right, back to Twisters. I actually have a question. All right, so if you just won the lottery and the winning
Where's
prize
this
is
question going?
okay. you get to own any one of the chase vehicles in the movie. So we got Glenn Powell's truck. We've got the whatever that company's name was truck, but we'll throw in the radars in there as well. You can't sell them.
Damn.
Okay, and then we've got the RV, and what else?
Oh, I'm taking the RV. Hands down, best chase.
Oh, there was
vehicle
that
of all time.
that VW van that they were driving, the Vanagon or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Or you've got
All
a
right,
Dodge
so-
Durango, which I hope you wouldn't choose that, but
So you gotta pull up to a Cars and Coffee in one of those vehicles. Which one are you choosing?
I am choosing Andrew's Volvo for the luxury.
featuring the CHASEPAL.us sticker that you can get by winning Chaser of the Week. If you submit your content to us, we'd be happy to judge it.
There you go. There you go.
No
Thanks for that.
vehicle I would take though.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I would want to get the radar. So that would be my only reason for going
That would be
with
pretty
that.
dope.
That was a TRX, wasn't it? Like 800 horsepower or something stupid.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a TRX. Maybe it was, but I thought it was.
It definitely
were they-
was. Now I gotta look
Were
this
they
up.
not Raptors? Hold on.
Let me see this. Oh yeah, it was definitely a TRX.
Oh yeah, it was.
I'd probably take that one. I can't
Actually, I
imagine.
would too. Well, do you remember? I think at the Texas State Fair, that's what they had us on that one course where you jump. You know what I'm talking
Yes,
about?
yes, that's exactly what that was.
Yeah, I would definitely take one of those too.
I can't imagine chasing in one of those. It'd probably be a nightmare, but I'd do it.
Speaking of that, okay, another unrealistic thing. Okay, first of all, they never had to stop for in the middle of a chase, which happens somehow regularly.
Well, to be fair, in that movie, they just so happened to pick the supercell instantly that produced a tornado, and they didn't have to drive very far.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the other unrealistic thing.
Unrealistic.
They're actually being a supercell before dark in Oklahoma. Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the off-road driving. Are you kidding me? Like, what? You're just gonna drive into a field and not get stuck immediately?
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
They went down a dry dirt road after a thunderstorm bent over. It's like, I've done that before, and I went straight into a ditch, so...
No, they needed Honda pilots if they wanted to do that.
Oh, no, you're right.
I have
Yeah,
a
there's
question.
certainly a lot of unrealistic chasing subtleties in that movie.
For sure.
Yeah.
It is a Hollywood movie, though. I mean,
Absolutely.
they're gonna have to compromise some of those realisms.
Have y'all seen the 4DX video that somebody took from inside the theater where people are getting thrown around in their seats when that scene
Oh
was
my
going on?
Yes.
Gosh.
That looks like it would make me so sick.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I'd love to do it.
Same.
Yeah. Well, Sarah wanted to do that when we went to see it, but I wanted to be able to focus on the movie and not just be rocking the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you guys know that Rachel Cross, who was one of our TAs,
The notes, right?
did the notes?
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
I
Barn
saw
movie?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
really?
really cool.
Super dope.
Yeah.
That is cool.
I still
That's
can't
cool.
believe, Andrew, that we saw Glenn Powell and Flying Cow that day.
I know, that was so
Yeah.
random. That was actually, especially because that was one of the only times that I had been in the weather center that whole spring since I wasn't a student there anymore. So
Yeah, literally the odds of that. We only ate at the Flying Cow like 3 times maybe during the spring together, forecasting storms, and one of the
Yeah.
times that we were there in the morning, he just walks in.
Oh, you were
we
there
should have gotten a
too?
picture with him.
Yeah, I was there, Matt.
Oh, I forgot that you were there for that.
It was before a chase because Addison was there. And let's be honest, I'm pretty sure if Addison
Cut out.
Bro died.
What were you
So
saying?
probably died, to be honest.
Oh yeah,
Bro probably forgot his charger.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Oh, he's here.
you cut out. You said you were saying something about Addison, and then it cut out.
Oh, that's crazy. I don't know what happened then. That's weird. I just got immediate. Love that. No, so what I was saying was if Addison wasn't there, we definitely would not have recognized him if it was just us three.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Zero clue who it was at first.
Same.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I had no idea. Yeah, that's
I
actually.
was like, oh look, here's a short guy who looks like he knows what he's doing here.
Yeah.
This is a short guy that knows what he's doing.
It's the weather center after all.
Yeah.
I have a question, if you don't mind switching the topic.
Yeah, let's do it.
Obviously there were tons of comparisons and what's the word, allusions to the original movie. So many of the scenes, were like just different versions of the scene, like the movie theater scene in the original Twister, where the tornado sneaks up on him at night, is exactly what happened in the Stillwater rodeo scene here. Lots of comparisons. What did you guys think of that? Like, obviously, the 1996 movie was like the original, tornado movie, and this was kind of a piggyback on that. I kind of liked some of the allusions, but also at the same time, some parts felt a little unoriginal. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that.
Andrew, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
Well, you're not going to believe what I'm about to say.
Oh boy.
He didn't realize it.
So, prior to 2 weeks ago, I had never actually watched Twister in entirety.
What? Really?
Oh my gosh.
Who the fuck
Yeah.
are you?
This guy.
That's insane, bro.
Yeah, it is actually insane. Now,
He got a degree in meteorology before he watched the Twister movie in full.
That's true. I might be the only person, actually. I might have been, for a little bit, the only meteorologist that's never seen it.
Actually, no. Marshall was just telling me the other day he never watched the original at all.
Well, that
Oh my
makes
God.
sense.
Yeah.
Is that when you need Marshall on the show?
Yeah. Well, we could do a live react with Marshall watching Twister.
Oh
Dude, that would
my
be so good.
No, so the thing is, I had seen definitely the ending, and maybe part of the beginning, but for some reason, so I watched it in a hotel in DC a week before I watched Twisters, and I realized halfway through the movie that I had definitely not seen a majority of the movie, and I thought that I had seen it like once, but what I think has happened is I've seen so many clips and so many scenes on Twitter that I had just thought that I had watched the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but now I have seen it in entirety, so
That's good. We can half accept you now, Andrew.
Yeah.
we'll take it.
So okay, so on the subject of like all the illusions, I thought it was cool that they did a couple of callbacks. With that scene in particular, it felt a lot like they did with the Star Wars movies, where it was like very clearly following the same progression of like, oh, we're on a desert planet and we need to escape it because I've done some bad things, and now I'm going to go learn under this Jedi Master, and now we're going to defeat the Empire. And like it was the same thing in the originals and in the reboots, in the early 2000s and in the reboots, like the past few years that Disney did. And to me, it was like, that's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, man, they can't come up with an original scene anymore. But
Yeah.
they did it well enough. And number one, I think I liked it because it was Stillwater getting hit. But they did it well enough that I was like, okay, this, like, it had purpose. It wasn't just a callback to be a callback. The way they did it made it make sense. So it was okay. I didn't mind it so much, but that's just the first thing I thought of was like, they can't do this any other way. So
Yeah,
And actually,
kind of where I am with it.
Share
Go
my
ahead,
opinion
Bill.
real quick. Oh wait, what?
Go ahead.
Well, okay, yeah, just real quick. So I liked that they didn't make it a sequel. That was my biggest thing, because sequels never work out as good. And it's like, yeah, you can only do so many plots. Doing a movie about storm chasing and tornadoes, that's going to be interesting. But I did like that they had like Dorothy and stuff like that. So
that was cool. That first scene where
That
they
was
had the
cool.
original Dorothy was pretty cool. Matt, what'd you feel?
I agree that I didn't have a problem with it. I noticed it right away. Like the second the sirens started blaring or whatever when they were at the rodeo, I was like, oh, this is like a deja vu.
Mhm.
But I think they pulled it off really well. And having it happen in just a different, if they did it at a drive-in again, I would have had a problem with that. That would have been a little.
Yeah.
But they did it in a different setting, so
They took out Stillwater, so it wasn't so bad.
Exactly.
yeah. And I think incorporating a nocturnal tornado is an important part, especially from the standpoint of like communicating to the public who's watching the movie that you can have tornadoes at night, because something that I've noticed is a lot of people don't realize that.
Oh, dude, and literally even when it's happening, like they were literally inside that hotel or whatever, and that guy was ordering, like trying to get some food or something like that. And there was a tornado happening right outside, and he
Yeah,
was,
I'm glad that guy died. That was fire.
yeah, but like that's real, like especially because it's at night and people can't really see it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
actually, that reminds me. I think Charlie, you were with me at the gas station on the high risk day in Oklahoma. Where were we? Weatherford, Oklahoma.
Yeah, when we were all sitting around with Daniel and Braden and all those guys.
Yeah, exactly. So we went into the gas station, and she was like, "I don't know why you guys are. Weatherford doesn't get hit by tornadoes. It always goes around." And in that moment, please, future employers, don't take this to heart. This is mostly satirical. I really wanted that gas station to get absolutely leveled that night, because it's like, sometimes people just don't think that tornadoes can occur where they live, and that's just not the case. I mean, they can occur anywhere and at any intensity, within reason, right? Like, especially in Oklahoma, right? Like, Weatherford has just as strong of a chance of getting hit as El Reno. I mean, they're not that far away, and people have so many myths about how they think tornadoes can hit, when they think tornadoes can hit, and it's so frustrating from a safety standpoint, because people will see a warning and not take it seriously because it hasn't happened before. So,
oh, absolutely. Well, what was really interesting, when I stayed at Sarah's aunt and uncle's house in Iowa a couple months ago, they are just like 45 minutes north of Greenfield. And we were sitting down talking to them, and they have a couple of high school age kids. And one of them was saying like, "Oh, this kid at school says that they live in Jefferson. Jefferson can't get hit by a tornado because it's right by the river."
What?
And like,
Such a
it
myth.
seems like a lot of people actually believe that that's the case.
yep.
So I had
Same
to
thing
go
in Norman.
information that a river has no effect on whether a tornado will occur or not.
No.
Yeah.
Even a large
And
lake
frankly, I
doesn't
would argue
matter.
that it could increase it.
In
because-
fact, that's what I mentioned, that there is some research out there that suggests that it could potentially increase it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of misconceptions and myths going around about tornadoes and where they can happen. And I think one of the things that this movie just did an excellent job of was just making little subtle kind of references to that. And even, with like chaser convergence and stuff like that, they did a really good job of kind of putting in some little Easter eggs, I guess, about safety and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to that scene, the guy was actively denying that there was a tornado when it was right outside. But across the counter, you also had the motel manager who was like, "I just got here. I'm clueless as to what's going on." You had both levels of people that were either unaware or ignorant to the weather going on outside, even when they're being told to their face. So it was cool to see it wasn't just somebody like actively denying that there was a tornado going on, but it was also just like the general public has no idea what's happening sometimes, even if it's right in front of their face.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Charlie.
Yep.
Yeah, and viewers, if this is you, just make sure you listen to your local meteorologists and your experts. They're the ones that know their stuff.
And, there's so many people out there, especially here in Oklahoma, that would say the exact same words as that guy or I guess actually it was the lady in there that said, "Oh, there's only a tornado 1 in 10 times. We don't ever get hit by tornadoes. It's always a false alarm."
Yep.
And I mean, the fact of the matter is a lot of times it is, but the realistic thing is that the time that it's not is where it's going to cost dearly.
Mm.
And that showed that it can indeed happen.
Yep. And it even happens to chasers too. I mean, chasers, if you're listening, like it can become a feeling of immunity almost when you chase around tornadoes a long time. And the reality is tornadoes are unpredictable. Always want at least a little bit of room for that tornado to move in a way that you don't expect, or that it shouldn't move. And a lot of times you see chasers that are really experienced end up getting too close and getting caught in it, getting their cars flipped, whatever, because just because it doesn't usually act in a certain way doesn't mean it won't that time that you're around it. So yeah, that goes for everyone.
Mhm.
Yeah, look at El Reno and Twist X.
Exactly, and everybody else around Twist X too. The Weather Channel crew, those two guys that were like a bus driver and a maintenance man that just happened to be caught in the path because they got caught in a bad spot. It doesn't matter if you're an expert or not. You know, you have to be ready for the unexpected at all times.
Absolutely.
Nope. Speaking of things that are warning, it made me think of tornado sirens, which another myth that was addressed in the movie was that the tornado sirens are off. That means that there's no more tornado. And I really like that because, tornado sirens aren't just on during the exact amount of time that the tornado's on. I mean, you know, if you hear sirens, stay indoors until you get an all clear on your phone or TV, whatever. But it made me think of, we've got a friend, Joel, who is pretty much, what would you say, a siren expert? I don't know. And he actually found a funny Easter egg in the movie, which is that the tornado siren that flew through the window during then was and I've got his text up because I certainly don't know this, it was a Federal Signal 2T22 and an American Signal T121. However, the siren that was actually making noise was a Whelan, or a Wayland, which is what they have in Norman. So it wasn't the sirens that they were using for the visuals. I thought was funny.
Dude, of course Joel would pick that up.
That's
Oh my
something
God.
only somebody like Joel would be able to know.
Yeah.
He might actually be the only one to have picked that up.
I just can imagine this Joel just sitting with a bunch of flashcards, like pressing play on YouTube videos of different titles. Like, oh, this is it. Like how did he get this knowledge? That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, and what's amazing about it too is he's never wrong. He's never come across a siren that he said.
He's better than a search engine or AI. He's literally perfect.
Well, he even knew that crazy weird one that we saw, or that we heard when we got rear-ended.
I was gonna ask about that because that was not a conventional siren. There's no way that guy knows. He knows.
He knows. So I texted him and he said that's a Wayland vortex using air horn signal. You don't see that very often. Yeah, no one sees it probably at all, except for somehow he still knew that. And he said some places like to use it as an all clear signal if they have those types of sirens. Totally up to preference though. Lower tones tend to carry a bit better than higher tones, so that may be why, but it also has a distinct sound aside from emergency vehicles. So there you go.
And it sounds like a
Sky's
fart.
awesome.
It does sound like a fart.
Well, that's been the Twisters episode on the CHASEPAL podcast. Andrew, Danny, thank you for coming on. Matt, appreciate your expertise in tornado science and research.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, really.
Anytime. And if y'all have any cool tornado videos, photos, content, anything storm chasing related you want, make sure to submit it the link below. Check us out on all of our social media platforms, and we will be back at least 2 weeks from now, if not next week. We're doing this whenever we can. So, y'all take care. Stay safe.